change perceived conflicts to perceived. Hi, I'm Taniya, a qualified research scientist, and this is a video about resolving everyday perceived conflicts. I use the word perceived with intention purely because have you ever noticed two people being in the exact same situation see very different things? One sees opportunity, the other sees nothing but problems. One sees a healthy discussion taking place, the other sees nothing but fights and arguments. What the reason for that is, it is how you choose to look at a situation that will define its impact on you, what value you take away from it, or do you choose to get burdened by it? If you're open and willing to question your assumptions in a situation, then this may be the video for you. As a researcher, we are trained to look at every situation from a different perspective, looking at it, asking more questions than having more opinions or more answers that we presume to know. There is a thing called as fallacy of composition that every researcher is aware of, and it shows up in all our lives, really. It is that because we see something hold true for a sample set or a subset, we don't automatically assume that the same applies to a population and hence is ready to scale. If that were the case, we'd have a lot of products that did not work for the masses than we currently do. So being aware of this, it kind of shows up in different ways in our lives. For example, just because something worked for one person doesn't mean it's going to work for everyone else. It's a common misconception is why people fail when they're trying to scale something that worked for one person and thinking that it'll work for them, without doing the necessary tests. It may or may not. Same goes for any situation. Just because you've walked in and you know the part of a problem doesn't mean that you know the whole problem. Doesn't mean you know the context of the whole situation. Doesn't mean you know all the variables that fed into why something is unfolding the way it is. So just being aware of this, next time you step into a conversation, you can be armed with more questions and just know with humility that you don't see the whole picture, but see a part of it. And that in itself can be a very grounding shift in perspective and a very grounding presence that you can have in a room where you're asking more questions out of genuine curiosity rather than having to prove a point, or rather than just to be able to say something that you already knew you were going to say, irrespective of what the answer to a question was going to be. Subtle shifts in your understanding of this fallacy, of this cognitive bias that we all have. No one's spared from it. We all start with a place of thinking, oh, this is the underlying reason for why something is happening. It's just, I invite you to just put a question mark at the end of it to say, is it? Is it happening for the reason I think it is? How do I know? So that leads you down a path of clarification, putting yourself in the other person's shoes, and bearing in mind that it may not still justify certain actions, outcomes, or behaviors, but it can give you the compassion to understand that they may be coming from a different place, and the tolerance needed to understand someone. And let's face it, 90% of our day is comprised of interpersonal interactions, whether it be with family, work, strangers, shops, whatnot. A shift in perspective in how we show up to these interactions can hugely define the course of your day, the course of your life, and really the story of your life. how you show up in one day, how you show up every day. Slight tweaks in the way you show up can change perceived conflicts to perceived opportunities of growth, of understanding. And lastly, to know that not everything needs resolution. All you can do is offer great questions, great solutions. Your view, your perspective. The common mistake is to assume just because you have a great potential solution that should resolve everything. No, I think everyone needs to take responsibility of their own actions and consequences, and for us to be okay with letting the pieces fall as they may and not trying to force a certain outcome just because we were on our A game, you know. So again, that brings us back to humility, and the same applies to everyday life. Also does in research. A huge part of research is the humility to accept that our experiment did not work, or it did not work because we ignored this thing, or we don't know what we ignored, and hence begins our process of researching iteratively, making it better for the next attempt. And ever so slightly, a small tweak grows into a profound research spanning over years. And what is life if not research in our own behaviors, slight tweaks and shifts taking place over decades and turning you into the person that you are today? I hope that any of this was of use to some of you, and if so, please leave your comments and let me know what helped and how's it been for you in terms of resolving conflicts, and what perspectives work for you. I'd love to hear, and thank you for watching.